Hello, how's it growing? Good to see you. My name's Johnny. I'm here with Waylon, the indoor farmer. He's a farmer. He's a veteran, and he is a podcaster focused on aquaponics. Or how do you say that? Did I say that right, Waylon?
Yeah, aquaponics using fish.
Because I think hydroponics is a little different when you're doing it inside, and you got all of the plastics. Aquaponics, I think, is when you're a lot of times I think of a pond where you got your fish, and then you got your veggies on a little raft on top. Does that sound right?
So that's where it came from. I mean, it's ancient. The Mayans were using it, like they had it. They would grow crops next to their lakes and rivers and stuff, and they figured the plants liked it, and they found that it was good, and that's now being done on a more scientific level. Dialing in all of the controls, environmental controls. You can do it outside. You could have a pond, and actually people do this without thinking about it, where they take pond water and feed their plants with it. It's in a roundabout way happening. Nowadays we're just using more automation, connecting it all together.
Yeah, it's interesting all the different technology. Sometimes I think about the self-reliance of gardening as being something that's really nice because it's there's a resilience to it. That you don't need kind of the technology, but then the hydroponics kind of gets back into that. So it's but I guess it could all just work on solar, and you can just keep things going that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything gets power from the sun. We're all getting our energy from the sun in one way or the other. And I don't love solar panels for a lot of reasons we could get into, but yeah, I mean, using thermodynamics and solar and wind, and using a little bit of everything, I think combination is really where it's at. People are always kind of arguing over this one versus that one, and I'm like, maybe it's a combination of all of them.
Now, there's a lot of different mediums people grow in when they're doing hydroponics. I was helping a friend; he was using cocoa core, so he was there, pouring the nutrients through this cocoa, which seemed kind of cool. But you think of it, it looked like dirt, but it was really nothing in it was like nutritious. It was just kind of this fiber, and but technically, it was still kind of like a hydroponic setup, even though it looked a lot more traditional and it's set up. These are just pots. Is that the kind of setup that you're working on?
So there's so many ways to do it, and that's actually one of the things that I started off wanting to do, was to try out different things. And I actually have a system that I kind of made homemade, where I combined three different methods. Now, what you're talking about, you could have these separate pots with cocoa core, but the issue is cocoa core, the fibers will break down, and those little fibers will eventually clog up your system. And so I went with clay pebbles. I actually could show you the system here in a minute if you want to, whenever you want to. But the clay pebbles is sort of like the dirt. It's the grow media, and the water flows through those pebbles. The pebbles also act as a filter to help uh, uh, grow and colonize the microbial bacteria, which is the whole way that the system works. Microbial bacteria breaks down all the fish waste, and then that becomes nitrites and nitrates for the plants. So you have to have some area in the system that has a lot of surface area, which the clay pebbles kind of act as that. But additionally, I have another trough that's just full of water, and so it's more like a float bed, which there's a thing over it that's not floating, but you can grow plants in just water. And then the third thing I have connected to the same system is a big PVC pipe that goes along the back side, which has holes and grow cups all along that. Which there's different plants that like different things. Some plants like a running water, some plants like to be sitting in water, and other plants like to have a sort of a grow media. But there's even more that you can combine. So I just kind of threw myself into it, trying out different things. I find that the clay pebbles seem to work the best. I like cocoa core. I use it in other ways, but it'll clog up the system if you use it too much.
Right on. Okay, so you got a recirculating system. The one I was working on, we kind of mix up the nutrients, pour it through, and then they was just like once off each time it would go through. But we weren't using fish. So you really got fish going, huh? You got the
Yeah,
tilapia in
that's
there.
yep. Aquaponics is the merger of aquaculture and uh, hydroponics.
That's really
So
interesting, right? And so
yeah,
people use rainbow trout and tilapia. Are those the main two?
those are big ones, mostly because of their ability to there's a word I'm trying to think of, but their resilience when it comes to temperature and environmental changes and stuff like that. You can also use on a smaller scale, which I don't have fish that I can eat, but I grow with tropical fish. You can grow with goldfish or uh, mollies or different things like that. So sorry, my dog is trying to moon everybody or trying to give everybody the old 1 2. Yeah, the combination of those is really where people try to figure out what they can do. Where you can go with it.
That's pretty cool. The tropical fish. You make me start thinking of saltwater, like a saltwater reef. But I guess you got to have so there's freshwater tropical fish
Mhm.
that you can have this
Guppies.
way, huh?
Yeah, guppies. They breed a lot. Some people will end up trying to breed guppies, and then they end up with hundreds and hundreds of them, and they have to flush them down the toilet. I've heard stories, but I actually breed them in this tank, and then the 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 tank sort of equalizes where they kind of quit breeding. I haven't seen them overbreed yet. Anyway, I'm sure they could, but I don't know. I think some of them get sucked into the system and then they end up in the clay pebbles and die, but I don't see them. They're so tiny.
They're that small, huh? That's
Well, they
incredible.
start that way. I mean, they get a couple inches. They're not very big.
So tell me about some of your favorite crops you're growing there, and have these tasted? You really enjoy the flavor and the produce you're getting from these.
I've had mixed success. There's a lot of things that I feel like I wouldn't grow again inside, but didn't work out well. Like I tried cucumbers, didn't work out well. I can tell you that the things that I really liked, basil really enjoys the aquaponic system. I'm growing a lot of broccoli, which let me back up a minute. I don't just have aquaponics going on here. I have an entire grow table, which is full of soil and clay and the cocoa core you talked about. I've got a whole bunch of different goodies in that table, worms and everything else, and that's sort of my experimental table to try to grow like an actual garden bed indoors, and it's up at like table height and but to finish the question, I have a bunch of broccoli growing in there, and the broccoli is crazy. I didn't mean to grow broccoli. I was growing it as microgreen, which we could get into. That's actually my main business model is microgreens. But once the tray is finished, once you have harvested the tray, you have a whole bunch of these little, ones and twos growing out throughout the tray, or maybe ones that are laid down and couldn't get cut. And so I just put the trays in here, and so I have broccoli growing from like a year ago, where the remaining broccolis I planted in this bed, and then after they grew and they made a broccoli head, plus you can eat the leaves on broccoli. After they were done, and I decided to chop them down and bury them in the table because there was worms and it's a living table. The broccoli keeps growing back up. It's voluntary, so the broccoli's like a potato or something. You bury the broccoli stalk, and it just grows more broccoli. And it's not like uniform looking broccoli heads. These little broccoli like spriggets coming up, and it's not bad though. I mean, it's all edible, and I can just keep. It's just going to keep coming. Another thing I really like are green onions, and because those just kind of sort of keep growing for a while. I really like the microgreens. I'm really digging that. That's in a different area. That's more of like these trays and like a rack and everything set up. So I'm really trying out a lot of different ways to grow stuff. But indoors is kind of the idea. Yeah.
The microgreens really interest me, right? So this is just a week and a half with a lot of them, and then they're done. Is that right?
Yeah, and that can be a problem because I've noticed that if you try to grow a bunch of different kinds, you're going to end up at different times on the finishing, and you don't get a good idea as to each individual crop. So my suggestion, if anyone's out there to thinking about doing it, is to start with one crop, maybe do one or two trays, maybe more, but only one crop, so that you get an idea, like you said, on the week and a half, or what the range is for when it will be ready. But I would say that the best thing to do, is to give it a try, expecting it to fail. Because I also did a few trays where I had half the tray as one thing and the other half as something else, so I could try them both, and that works okay. Other than they grow at different rates, and so you end up with kind of a messed up half. Because with microgreens, you want them to be in the dark for a day or two. You want them to. Sometimes people will put weight on them and have this whole system to make the roots even stronger and the sprouts, grow up even more stoutly, and that's something I'm not into yet. But you can't really do that if you have more than one crop under the same lid, or more than one type of thing. Now, other people will get those bags of like mixed microgreens, like salad mix or whatever. And you could do that, but you can't really do it in the uniform sort of grass way that you see on the successful microgreen farmers. You see in them sometimes in advertisements and stuff where they show you this perfectly it looks like piece of like a piece of sod with grass or whatever. It looks so perfect, but you're not going to get that from a mixed bag of micro salads.
Right, right. So, I've read that the microgreens are just, packed with the nutrition, it really activates all of that, the goodness in that seed. And this is maybe just the best time to be eating, any sort of plant is when it's at this stage. And, yeah, I've grown, some mustard greens and some
Oh yeah.
radish sprouts and, the broccoli sprouts. And, yeah, so is there a favorite that you found that you really enjoy growing?
I like sunflowers. They're really good. Sweet peas are very tasty too. Got that little sweetness to them. Um, I can't say anything else that stood out. I actually really liked the bull's blood beets, but they grow so it's such a weird one to grow. They don't grow in a nice carpet. They kind of are spread out. They're a bigger seed. So I have to try that one again. But I liked those. And then there was another one, purple kohlrabi. I grew a bunch of that. It wasn't bad. A little bit more of like a radishy kind of taste. I like the sweet ones. Obviously, are a little bit tastier as a snack. But I really any microgreens. If I'm growing four different microgreens, I'm gonna cut all four of them and throw them in a salad. You know what I mean? Like they all go good together. That's what I like about it. Something else, just to be a little bit more risque. I'm hearing, uh, uh, what is it? Hemp microgreens for at restaurants. People are some places. I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be a little more difficulty finding those kind of customers, but some people are doing this a hemp microgreen thing where because it's evidently a superfood as well, and that's in that little microgreen stage made with hemp seed. So it's kind of cool. Oh, by the way, I just want to say I'm sorry, man. I don't know why, but it's not giving me the option to share it anymore. Unfortunately, on the StreamYard, but I wanted to try to bring my audience in, so I'm trying to share it out in case you wondering what I'm over here messing around with.
Oh, no worries. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so, I have seen where people are making, really good money, six figures plus doing microgreens out of just like a bedroom or a garage. And yeah, if you live in the right location where, yeah, it's really about finding these higher end restaurants who are interested in these and providing them, you know, this sort of thing. But yeah, that's pretty cool that we can grow something that's so nutritious, organic, local, fresh, delicious. Yeah, just out of
And
a
all year
back
round
room
too.
all
Yeah.
year round. Right. So you're in Illinois. You got the your growing season's just what is it, about 5 months up there?
It's a good growing season, but the issue is you still have droughts and we have flood weather and stuff like that. So it can be rough. Like I used to detassel, man. I don't know if you ever detasseled as a kid, but Illinois is nothing but corn country. So detasseling was kind of a rite of passage, and you would end up sometimes in fields that are just like knee high mud. Not every kind of crop can handle that. Corn can do it 'cause it's so tall, but yeah, you got to be careful. So I said earlier, primarily indoors, but I'm trying to. I'm going to learn how to grow stuff outside as well, of course. But I think indoors can be a great supplement to what we have. Especially because we have to ship things from so far away. Um, I don't want my produce or meat sitting on the dock for 3 weeks before it gets to my grocery store. Like that kind of stuff needs to go by the wayside. Need to be more farm to table.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's yeah, the fresher the better, and yeah, they say those nutrients, as soon as you start to pick it, it starts to break down. So yeah, that's great work you're doing there that way. And I love the idea that every leaf, every blade of grass, everything that we're growing inside, it's purifying the air we're breathing, so we got better indoor air quality, and so that's super cool as well, huh?
I agree. I've never been a house plants kind of guy. I'm terrible with them. Somebody gave me a house plant and I killed it. Uh, but I always like the idea of growing something that has a use. I mean, you could grow like aloe. There's house plants that have a medicinal use and stuff. But all house plants do clean the air. They do provide you with a little bit of greenery. They provide you, a little bit of a mood enhancement, I guess. Give you that green in the wintertime, even though there's nothing outside. I, I just don't like. I like to grow something that has a use. I don't know. What do you think about house plants? You got any house plants?
I don't have house plants. It's nice to get like a little cutting going inside by the sink sometimes. Sprouts count as a house plant. I do some sprouts time and again, and get the microgreens going, I guess. But I
You ever
do
heard of
think
air
that
plants?
indoor air quality better. So,
Sorry, you got a little choppy there. I think I talked over you there. Something about air quality.
oh yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I was just talking about the indoor air quality. I think that's there's always a merit to that. More more so I got my neighbor. He's got his weed whacker going. Can you hear him? He's
I
been
can't even hear you, brother. You're. It's very very choppy right now. Oh, we lost him. We lost him. He'll be right back, folks. Johnny Paradise. He's in paradise, but sometimes you can't always get an internet connection that in paradise. It's the only problem right now with paradise. Or living out in the country. That can be a problem out there too. People that have this deep connection to technology and really want to, be able to connect with their friends. It can be important to get a good internet connection out into the country. And I know some friends that have, the satellite stuff like that, um, fiber optics. But you still have little glitches here and there. He's back.
oh yeah, back again. Oh, we got the neighbor doing the weed whacker. Can you hear him in the background? He's
Don't
getting
hear
his
it.
garden looking. Yeah, he just stopped actually when I said that. But yeah, what else can we touch on, Waylon? What
I
what
would
else
you
is
brought up a
growing
good
on?
point when your internet broke down was that, or not internet, but like when you had to reset there, I was talking to people about how sometimes that is a drawback or a downside to some people when they think about moving out into the country. They think, well, I won't be able to connect with my friends and family because of internet. And now we're starting to see a much better between fiber optics and say Starlink and other things. We're starting to see a little bit more connectivity out into those rural communities, and I think that can maybe, if not incentivize, it can at least allow for more people to spread out a little bit away from cities and maybe uh, be a little more sustainable without being so worried about being cut off from the world. And people like you being out in the middle of nowhere, being able to still be an influencer or being able to do a show or whatever it is you want to do from remote places. I think that's really cool. But at the same time, people are scared of that when they're like, I don't want to move out into the country, grocery store too far away, or I don't know, whatever the scare is. Um, but I think things are getting better in that realm. I think more people are moving away from cities too, which is good in my opinion.
Well, baby steps, right? So, you can get out to live in just outside a small town, right? So you can
Yes,
be still have
that's how you do
everything you
it.
need, plenty of grocery stores, plenty of
Mhm.
restaurants, plenty of whatever, and then you're still at least you're surrounded by nature, a lot
You
less
can immediately
toxicity.
be helpful to that town. Like some of these towns need an influx of more, not just skilled labor, but people to buy and sell things in general in some of these small towns. Have you ever thought about buying like like a ghost town, and then try to revive it in the Johnny Paradise town, like just from nothing? You can buy them for like 10 grand, like
Well, the sad thing
abandoned.
about a lot of these towns that that people have been deserted, that they were like for manufacturing, and so they would have like a lot of toxicity. So I don't know. It's just
Oh, that's true. Didn't think about that.
I'm sure there's a lot of good options out there though in that way, and time does kind of have a way of healing things. But yeah, I do like the idea of you know kind of being a part of a community that's planned very intentionally with having things as nice and walkable. Not having such a reliance on cars everywhere, and so yeah, you go to a lot of cities around the world, and it's such a pleasure when things are walkable and things are greener, more green spaces, more public spaces. So
Sure.
yeah.
I have a friend that I actually haven't had him on my show yet, but I think he would be a good guest on your show as well. And he talks about foraging, and I think a combination of regenerative ag and also the knowledge of what's around us, like you're saying, being able to walk around your city, but also to be able to see the usefulness of things, like say, um, in my backyard, I'm sure I have 10 different medicinal plants that I don't even I have no idea. And so the knowledge of that, not everybody has to be a farmer, but some people can be good at finding things like that, or maybe like mushroom hunting and actual hunting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think foraging is super cool, right? That's like something, go back past 100 years ago, maybe all of our ancestors knew how to do. And yeah, to reconnect with that, I think that that's a really great feeling. Going out and finding some chicken of the woods mushrooms, coming
Hmm.
back home and sauteing them up. I think that's a great feeling. So yeah, learning how to do this, and then they say like the Amazon and even in the states from coast to coast, these forests that were like intentionally kind of planted were all about edibles, medicinals. So kind of to get back to that while we're foraging, we can be spreading the seed. People talk about guerrilla gardening, going and planting some useful trees in places that are public that everybody can enjoy. There's a lot of different ways that we can sow abundance this way. So
It's like I don't know. I just thought of a term: intentional landscaping. Like, I guess it's always intentional, but never mind. It's not a great term. There's something to it though, like not gardening, but planning. You're saying planning ahead, you know, planting a tree that maybe you won't ever see the fruit from, but it would be really nice to have one day. Avocados and such. Although I don't know if I can grow avocados outside here. I do have a pineapple growing indoors. And to your question earlier about what my favorite things are, I really like the green peppers because they love the aquaponic system. They've been attacked a few times by pests or mice, and then they just keep on producing. This I've had these three pepper plants in there almost two, like at least more than a year, maybe 2 years now, just growing peppers out of the same plants. So I like finding little things like that. I'm going to make a list of stuff that works really well indoors versus outdoors. Like broccoli, bro. Broccoli gets huge. I never saw broccoli before I tried growing it indoors. I mean, I've eaten it as the little broccoli heads, but it gets big inside. So there's stuff like that I probably wouldn't do indoors again.
Man, broccoli's a great one for growing as sprouts. They say, it's way
Yes.
more nutritious when it comes to sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is a compound that's like super helpful for our immune system and for helping out also with inflammation and cancer. They say, especially boys with autism. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, getting some broccoli seeds and sprouting them super easy. You just keep a jar of seeds by your sink, and you just rinse them twice a day, and yeah, within a week you're gonna have a lot of broccoli sprouts that you went to the store and bought them. They might be $5 for what you get, and the seeds that you're buying to do this, it'll cost you 50 cents. So yeah, it's that's what comes to mind for me when I think about broccoli as those sprouts again.
Yeah, buying things in the store, especially the nutrient depleted stuff, and not only that, but we're buying stuff that's useless, like things like leather, like lettuce. I was going to say leather, lettuce. Like what are you eating lettuce for? Like a salad should be full of so many other. So what I'll do is I'll buy a salad from the store, which is mostly lettuce, and it has some other things in there. Throw out the shredded cheese. That's not good for us anymore either. And but then I'll come down and I'll cut up a bunch of different things that I'm growing. You know, not only broccoli but a couple broccoli leaves, some radish leaves and some, not everything because I wouldn't throw mint in there, but like a green pepper and some onions and stuff, and I'll throw it all in my salad, and that really makes it like a nutritious, more nutritious. Can we talk about, though, before we get out of here? I want to talk about the almost insane obsession that we have with corn, wheat, and soybeans in the farming industry in this country. I mean, we don't have to, but you made me think about it a minute ago, and I'm just like, I look at these things like the farm, what the Farm Bureau puts out, and what agriculture industry pays attention to, and almost no matter what, they're always looking at those. And not to touch on your hot button, but obviously we know there's problems with those crops, glyphosate and such. But not just that, even if there wasn't any problems with those crops, I don't believe that we need to be subsidizing and growing more corn, wheat, and soybeans than we grow of anything else. It's ridiculous how much we put an emphasis on those things. Yeah, maybe you're making ethanol. Okay, I'll give you that, but it's still in our food so much more than we need it to be. Like all the aisles of crackers and chips, and it's just, what do you think it is? What do you think that
Well,
point is?
I think to start with the ethanol, I think that it's come out that the ethanol is there's no real benefit to it. That the input costs of processing it,
Hmm.
you're wasting more energy creating this ethanol than you're saving. So without the subsidies, ethanol would be so much more expensive, and the ethanol is not so great for the engines, right? This is what we keep on
Right.
hearing. So the ethanol seems like it's just really needs to be phased out. That it's something that's in there that um, you know again, an industry getting their say in legislation. Iowa is like the first to vote in the primaries. So, how much of a role does this play, right? So
Mhm.
getting their voice heard there is they don't want anybody, getting in there who doesn't want to, keep this going. So,
They
uh,
create industry around it. Like there's literal like there's whole like organizations just for corn. There's a whole organization for soybeans. There's like they create like they stack up stuff under or on top of something that's unnecessary, and then it makes it too much to be able to let it fail. Oh, look at all these jobs within the corn, and you know what I mean? Like there's like I've read it a few times when I look at farmweeknow.com, and they'll point out different things like they'll have a big acronym with a bunch of letters, and it's basically this like a soybeans uh, committee or whatever. It's like those people don't want to lose their job, and so everybody just keeps propping up the thing that's unnecessary. It just they keep making more groups
it's
out
it's
of it.
it's, it's crazy. So, again, and then this corn is GMO corn. So this is ridiculous when you think about this is just an experiment with our genetics, right? So whether you believe in a creator who blessed us with all of these all the creation, all the plants, all the animals, or if you believe in adaptation and evolution, and you believe that millions of years created everything in this very delicate homeostasis, we see how we can wreck it, right? We see whole ecologies. You go to New Zealand, there used to be so many birds that are now extinct because we introduced so many different mammals that just kind of wrecked. They're out there poisoning the deer, shooting them from helicopters with AK-47s because they're just like kind of taking over everything. They got no natural
Right.
predators. So when we make a GMO product and they're just putting it out in the environment, experimenting, this could create famines. This can create blights. You watch the movie Interstellar. It was a good warning. They showed how they couldn't grow their crops anymore. Well, how did this happen? Well, it could happen a number of different ways, because right now they're doing also not just GMO plants, they're doing GMO microbes. They're doing GMO viruses with the gain of function nonsense.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's somebody out there trying to dream up GMO parasites. Okay, and this is just all a bad idea. I work in software, and if the people in these labs doing this nonsense had the best intentions of Buddha and Gandhi and Jesus even, you know it's an experiment, and these labs are all notoriously leaky, but they're doing their experiments outdoors. So, Hawaii is really, very active against Monsanto, right? They're doing the experiment on three of the islands there, and yeah, it's a lot of nonsense. So that's what I think of when I think of the ethanol. Same thing with the soybeans, right? The soybeans, a lot of these commodity crops are GMO, and so what does that mean? Well, one thing it means is that they're using the Roundup Ready, right? So they found a gene inside a microbe that was about the only microbe that could resist, Roundup, glyphosate. And so they took that gene and they just tried it a million times, firing it into the corn. They don't really know what they're doing. They say this is like a scalpel when they use CRISPR. It's not.
Hmm.
This thing is make so many mistakes, and we don't understand the genome. They don't, and so they try again and again and again, and they finally get it to work, and then they don't even safety test it. They say there's an equivalence. It's just as safe as a corn if it looks like a corn. If it tastes like a corn, it's just as safe as a corn, which is total nonsense. Yeah,
Is
it's
it really
crazy.
corn anymore though?
It's crazy. How much arsenic do you have to eat to have some toxicity? They say they're fond of saying the dose makes the poison. How many poisons are there? You just need a tiny, tiny little bit, right? But
And
they refuse. Go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
Well,
Go ahead.
they refuse to do any safety testing, and if there is safety testing done, it's done by the big industry who stands to profit billions, and so they lie and they cheat and they commit fraud repeatedly. They're serial criminals this way, and so they
Well,
can't be trusted. And yeah, further and further they creepingly are capturing our institutions, our agencies, and our public servants. So
in these safety tests that they might do, they do a very shallow, bare minimum kind of thing. We already know that they don't test these things for 50, 100, 50 years, 100 years because they couldn't have. It's all such so new. Yeah, I saw that Tico biological supply. What's up? Yeah, so they there's no possible way they could know the long term ramifications, just like these um, vaccines and stuff like that. But just to go full circle back to this, the ethanol, which kind of triggered your thought on this. Anything synthetic, we're finding out almost without a doubt is bad. I haven't found anything yet that we have come out with synthetic hormones, synthetic, testosterone, all these different things that we're finding out. All these supplements and stuff that are synthetic are not good, and it's okay to, like you said, it's an experiment. It's okay to say that's not working out, but when you build up all this industry around it, they say it's too big to fail or whatever, and that's where we're having trouble. I think what happened is farmers probably ended up with too much leftover crop, and eventually someone was like, "Well, we could turn it into fuel, turn it into alcohol," because people used to make moonshine, or they still probably do, out of corn, right? Oh, well, we already know it can make alcohol, so all they have to do is, oh, we can do this, and now it can be fuel. Well, I think that's just a way for them to reuse or to use some of their crop that maybe wasn't selling. There's always a worry about that. Or you have crops that maybe have a problem, blight or whatever, and they can't sell it. I think there's another answer. I think that all crops turn into methane, right? And there are farmers in other countries that have found this out, where they have a year where they didn't sell enough crops, and so they have a loss, and they've turned that around into a gain by creating these systems that allow them to throw all their waste products into a container. And there's different ways to do it, larger ones that have like an arm inside there that agitates stuff, like a composter would, and they get methane back out. They can capture methane and then produce electricity with that methane. So I don't think we need to go directly from corn to vehicles. I mean, they could still use it to produce energy. It just doesn't need to be ethanol, and then creating this pressure on auto industries to create engines that are okay to run with it, and all this sort of retrofitting of everything in order to use it. Instead of doing that, they could have done so many other things. And so that's just one example, but a lot of these have a similarity. Like, instead of wasting time to create TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, they could spend a lot of time, spend that same money on promoting things that increase testosterone. Like, that same amount of energy and time and money could have been spent in the more natural realm of, like, eating foods that do it, different exercises, cold water plunges, all these different things that have been shown to increase testosterone. Anyway, what do you think? We could use it in a different way.
For sure, and what comes to mind for me is I think I read that one of the best things that you can do for your testosterone is to do some squats, right? So just getting
Hmm.
into that garden and yeah, moving some things around, pulling some weeds, getting down, you know, down and dirty. Getting our hands in the soil. This can go a long way towards keeping us healthy, and yeah, even the vitamin B, we absorb it through our skin from the soil. So
Hmm.
they say we're living 10 years longer when we're out there doing a little gardening.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and to go back to those commodity crops, though, so I mentioned the corn and the soy, the wheat. In our country, the wheat's not GMO, but it is being
Really?
sprayed with glyphosate at harvest
Right.
sometimes to help uh, harvest it quicker, to help harvest it all at the same time, make it a little easier. This is a practice that's banned in all of Europe, and we got to follow suit. This is just crazy. This stuff. It's an antibiotic and it's an endocrine disruptor. So you mentioned testosterone. It totally it messes with all our hormones, be it
Hmm.
melatonin. And we're in a fertility crisis, right?
Hmm.
We're a sick, broken, dying country, and we got to change that. And I think this glyphosate is the main culprit. It's implicated in dozens of diseases, all going parabolic. And so, yeah, the more that we can, grow our own food and buy it organically, it's worth it because, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And
Hmm.
we'd rather spend our time and money on a good meal that makes us feel great in the moment towards our health rather than sitting in a doctor's office, paying for medications that don't work. So,
Yeah, we just don't. We don't. I was going to say we don't tell ourselves that often enough because a lot of people will think I'm not gonna. I'm gonna have my cake and eat it too. I'm going to eat what I want, and I just won't ever go to that doctor. Well, and then we end up down the road with bigger problems. Um, I think I think we didn't need to promote healthy living in new ways. One of my plans is to my facility eventually is going to have a gym, and that gym will have and there is equipment out there in places I see. I think China has a bike you can buy that plugs into the wall and you can generate electricity with it. So the people have done this, but what I want to do is I want to make an entire gym that connects to the aquaponics system, which is connected to a water tower. And so how do you store electricity? Well, so far water is our best method as far as larger amounts. And so I want to make a gym that incentivizes you to be healthier because you will get paid to come and work out. You'll get a percentage of that work and effort that you're putting in and then back as money, and then say you work off enough that you paid your membership and then you're still going for that month, then you might end up making a few dollars from going to the gym. No matter like whatever the math works out to that, I'll have to work out all that out. But I personally want something like that in my own home, like a small water tower, 500-gallon water tank raised up off the ground. And I just want to be on an old bike that I rig up to pump water, and just be like working off. And because the incentive isn't there enough. Like I know every day I think about, I need to work out more. I need to go to the gym, but I'm just under that threshold of like feeling like I'm unhealthy to push myself that extra bit. And so I think people in general work off of incentive. And if I can incentivize you not only to be healthier, but to also help save the planet, generating green energy, and to make a little money off of your effort and your work. I mean, people work out at home all the time for free instead of going somewhere that they could get money off of it. You know what I mean? I think it could work. I just have to get
All
there.
right, Waylon. I think it's a cool idea, but I'll push back. I'll give you an alternative. What if
Okay.
you could go somewhere and it could all be gamified, and it could be like you're figuring out a puzzle, maybe you're balancing the elements, maybe you're creating beauty, you're creating food, medicine, building materials. This is what we're doing when we're gardening. We're out there,
Mhm.
go bring in some big bags of compost, some mulch, go dig a big hole and plant a nice sized tree. Go climb a tree and prune it a little bit once a year. It's this is fresh air, this is sunshine, this is
Mhm.
things that are really good for us too. And so yeah, I think the more natural the better. This guideline just works out to be true so much of the time. And you talk about the incentive, this is clean food. This is something that's really, it's solving all of our biggest challenges. It's creating food purity, food security, local resilience. This is autonomy, self-reliance, independence, real freedom. And yeah, it's just getting more important all the time. So
I see your point, and I think I get what you mean. Doing real work would probably take away the need to go to the gym. And so if in by that logic, we eventually should have, and because that's kind of one of my messages, is that everybody could do a little bit more to become more self-sustainable, even if it's a teeny pinky toe was worth more. But I guess I see your point. I'm kind of contradicting myself when I'm saying everyone should be able to go and do a little bit of something, but also come over here and work out of the gym, because theoretically you're not going to have time to do both of those things if you're doing one. Now, what I mean by the gym is I think a lot of people live sedentary lives, going to the office, going to the whatever, and I think there is a need for the gym for maybe a home exercise, and I just don't think enough people are incentivized enough to do it, and that's why I thought of the whole exercise. But to your point about gamifying it, not only did I have a plan for that already, where inside the gym you could have people competing to see who generates more green energy, Johnny versus Waylon, and there's a screen on the wall where everybody's watching, they're cheering us on, and we're both pumping away on the bike, and oh, Johnny's almost got 10 gigawatts. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then you create this. I got chills talking about it. Just you create this sort of competition, and then you go another step further, and you bring in professional athletes and pro wrestlers and famous people, and they're all on there competing with each other to see who's generated the most green energy for the planet, and then they look good doing it, and then it becomes like, but then to your point about gamifying even further, imagine those goggles once we get these better, the Apple ones are too heavy, but once we get a better and better version of AR goggles, imagine AR goggles telling you and throwing you like little cha-chings and little things as you're exercising or as you're working out in the garden. You're carrying that load to the garden. It's saying you burn this many calories on your way to do that. Or I don't know. You could gamify it. I don't think we should need that, but it is pretty fun when you have something little cha-ching, cha-ching coming at you, little coins popping up. You get to give yourself an extra, I don't know, scoop of ice cream today because you did so many. I don't know, you give yourself goals or something within the game. It could be fun.
Oh man, that's hilarious. You said 10 gigawatts there. I remember Back to the Future. Doc was flipping out. He's like 1.21
Gigawatts. Yeah. I don't
And,
know what you did.
yeah.
2 watts. Like,
He
man,
says the only way we get that is a bolt of lightning.
Yeah, we should be harnessing that lightning. There's fake lightning. Did you know there's fake lightning? Fake clouds can make fake lightning. Yeah, the
Is that
cloud seeding and stuff.
What's the fake lightning about?
They can literally generate a lightning bolt by making fake clouds.
That's wild.
I've not been in it, so I can't give you that much more. But I know they can also make a hologram lightning bolt from holographic clouds. It's crazy stuff happening out there, man.
It's getting crazy.
Yeah.
Look, people can find you at the Indoor Farmer on X. Where else can people find you?
I'm all over. I'm on Rumble at the Indoor Farmer. I'm on Facebook, which is the love-hate relationship. It's so censorious, but that's where all my followers are. I'm trying to get them over to X, but you can find me all over YouTube.
And
Facebook,
Waylon, you're
Rumble.
podcasting, you're streaming a lot. So if people tune in, they can join the fun there, huh?
5 days a week. I do 5 different shows, and they're all connected to my sustainability kind of message, but they're different shows on purpose because I don't think anyone wants to see a gardening show 5 days a week. But I do want to point people to that fact that everybody has to eat and that we need each other to do it. So I created different shows that have different reasons for bringing people together, but also different reasons for what I do. I like each show for a different reason, if that makes sense. I get something out of them for myself. Yeah, thanks, man. I do appreciate it.
Dude,
I appreciate you coming on my show.
Yeah, man, it's been fun.
It's been too long since I haven't been on. How many episodes are you in on this? Like, are you just kind of doing it?
Oh man, I
when
don't
you do
know. I keep doing
So
it
you have
different
quite a
ways. So
bit.
it depends on how you count it, But yeah, maybe this is like 40 or so I'm doing now these videos. So
Wow.
But
keep it up, man.
Yeah, I tell you, man, this shout out to fruit trees and chickens, our favorite plants and animals. Let's be fruitful. Dude, mahalo to you for everything you're doing, Waylon. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate what you're doing too. Thanks for having me on.
All right.